Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So today we are going to be working in this sketchbook, but we're going to do something a little bit different as I wanted to kind of show you guys how I deal with some alcohol marker bleed through, because a lot of sketchbooks typically do not have like one of those marker coatings things where it allows you to work on both sides of the sketchbook because it prevents bleed through. So alcohol markers tend to bleed through paper just in general. So I did end up doing, I think, about 3 little pages where we could kind of find ways to draw on top of these, or kind of like make most of the room on your sketchbook if you do want to draw on both sides but you're dealing with some massive bleed through like these ones, or some minimal bleed through. So kind of like as a small comparison, this is a water-based marker, so a lot of like fine liners, you can probably just read the kind of like description or whatever, but if it's usually not an alcohol marker, a lot of the other markers are water-based markers. They tend to be streakier and they don't really soak through the page per se, but sometimes it gives you a little bit of pilling or it sits on top of the surface of the paper. This will be our water-based markers. Now I'm going on like several different times. I'll do one pass right here, then we'll do one pass of our alcohol marker, and then several passes of our alcohol marker. So if you can kind of see already texture wise, you can see that the one pass of water-based markers doesn't really do too much to the paper and there's no pilling. The texture is pretty much uniform, but after several passes with the water-based marker, you can kind of see it tearing up the paper a little bit. Now, obviously your paper type is going to heavily affect whether or not this marker rips through it a lot easier or a little bit less. But then in comparison to an alcohol marker, this is one pass and this is like many passes. So both of them are very smooth, just like the one pass of water-based markers. But kind of like on the flip side, this is kind of what our ghosting or our bleed through looks like. So you can kind of see with just like the light coming through, our water-based markers just have very, very minimal ghosting, almost nothing, because like if we place it down, you can't really see it. Maybe itty bitty amount on the many passes with the water-based marker, but the other two are the alcohol markers. So this one has minimal bleed through with just one pass, and a lot of bleed through when it comes to doing many passes. Now, if you don't put a piece of paper down or have one of these little kind of mats that come with some alcohol marker sets, you can often end up with some bleed through coming to the next page that you have, which isn't great. So to keep it nice and clean, make sure to keep something in between your 2 pages to prevent that. I'm going to show you guys some examples from my previous sketchbooks, so feel free to hop around with the little timeline or whatever, or like the timestamps that I have in the description if you're interested in specific methods. But for now, I'm going to show you guys examples first. So kind of starting from one of my most recent sketchbooks. If you haven't watched my sketchbook tour, hopefully this won't be too much spoilers, but I did end up using alcohol markers like every so often in this particular sketchbook, but not too much. So this is a spread done with alcohol markers, and you can kind of see the nice vibrancy you can get from using alcohol markers and just like shading and blending capabilities. But like I said, a lot of the bleed through happens on the back side, and this is notebook paper, so it's like super thin. So for me, I do like adding some kind of like scrap pieces of paper. A lot of like sticky notes, post-it notes work great for this, and they're easy to take on the go. So I like to keep sticky notes in the back of my sketchbook. I don't know if I have any here. I do here. Oh, I even have planning. So I usually keep a little stack of sticky notes back here, so just in case if I do want to cover up a sketch or two, or if I want to cover up bleed through while I'm out and about, I will have access to them. So this is kind of like one way, and I find it nice because you can cover up certain areas or you can use vibrant colors. Right here I kind of chose more earthier tones. Same thing, so post-it notes to kind of block out. You can definitely choose like more sticky notes to cover up more of the surface. You can use less, you can use whatever you want, but you can see that compared to like drawing on top of the marker, sometimes it's a bit hard to see, but putting down some kind of like extra paper kind of makes it easier and able to work on the surface once again instead of having to deal with the color bleed through. So the other one I have in here is the spread of Arrtx from Honkai Star Rail. So here I used some paint markers, acrylic paint markers to kind of block out shapes to make my sketch stand out. And then on this side, I ended up pasting. So I guess I was planning to use sticky notes again to cover up the space, but I ended up just pasting in old drawings or drawings from a different place into the sketchbook because it's also another way you could just cover up and utilize the space a little bit more. So I'm bringing out some of my old sketchbooks that were finished from previous years. So this one's from, I think, Eeks or EPOW. I use sticky notes a lot, so this one had marker bleed through once again, but it is thicker paper, so the bleed through wasn't too tremendous compared to the other ones. But you can kind of see me using sticky notes in a way that kind of blocks out certain shapes, so that one, it's a little bit more interesting to look at the layout. I love using this highlighter yellow. I don't think I have any more, but I like using the brighter colors. I think they're just fun to use with like pen or ink. So there's like one. Another set of using the sticky notes to block out more alcohol markers. Once again, see, this is kind of fun. So like vibrant sticky notes are great for making things like really pop, especially with ink. I'm trying to see where else I used it. Here, this is like one of my favorite spreads, even though this is super old. I used a blue kind of like needlepoint pen, and you can put post-it notes and kind of block out some more bleed through that happened here and there. So I feel like this is my favorite method. Now for these sticky notes, I ended up gluing into my sketchbook instead of just leaving them loose. But more recently, I think, I'm trying to see which one has it. Oh, so this one, once again, kind of the same method. I think I did end up gluing these because I can feel the texture from underneath. But yeah, this is another kind of stacking of the sticky notes, and I try to use like colors that represent the character a little bit better. Oh, planning is a good way to also cover up bleed through, so you can kind of just utilize the page as is and not really care about whether or not it looks really messy. This one I also did, so these are cardstock, and I just used washi tape or tape to tape them into my sketchbook. It's another way to cover up bleed through. Like I said, is just placing in other drawings from different pieces of paper into your sketchbook. So I think those are the most common ways. There is one method that I'm gonna try to do that's not like something that I usually do. So if you don't want to draw on top of your little sticky notes and everything, you could definitely draw on them beforehand and stick them into your sketchbook like this and kind of do them as individual little doodles. Or if you just treat them as like little bubbles, then you can just draw over top of your bleed through. I'm trying to see what I used to do for some of these other spreads. It's just which one is it? Oh, I guess this one. So these were done with alcohol markers. They're very pastel, very light. But on the other page, I ended up doing gouache. So using some kind of paint is a great way to kind of cover up another spread if you want to do another thing with like full color, or you want something to really pop from your alcohol markers. That is another fun way to kind of cover up a spread. This one's coming undone, but another one with bleed through. I brought the sketchbook too, so let's see what I have in this one. Oh, sometimes I just doodle on top. Like I mentioned with the Fremine one, I just do sketches that I don't really care about on top of bleed through if it's not too hard to see. Because I don't really care about these doodles, but I'm still utilizing the page. Oh, colored pencils. Like anything that's opaque that can stand out still works quite nicely on bleed through as long as it's vibrant enough and a little bit more opaque. Some more bleed through, very pastel colors on thicker paper, so bleed through wasn't too bad. But you can see Koji really stands out from this page, even though there is some ghosting right here. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started with our first method, which is going to be the sticky notes. So let me grab some. So let's go ahead and start off with sticky notes. So like I mentioned, I have some in the back of my sketchbook, but let's do this one to cover up this bleed through. I never really showed you guys the alcohol marker drawings that I did for kind of like tests. So Masaki with a Punkaboo, and then Kaisen with a Haunter. And then the other one was of Raimundo with her new outfit because it's so freaking adorable. And I wanted to use more like pastel colors for her spread, so I don't know, super cute. But let's do the sticky note method on this particular page. The two sticky notes that I have for this time is kind of like this pastel-ish green, which I think is like a typical sticky note, post-it note color. And then I have a set of more kind of like earthier tone ones. I'll post a picture of my like sticky note stash because I do this method a lot, so I have like a plethora of sticky notes in general, and I kind of wish I picked more of those like neon bright colors. Today I'm going to use this one because I did do a quick little swatch test, which I'm not sure how well you guys can see. The ink kind of changes from this upper portion to the lower portion because of where the adhesive is from the previous page. And this one I find it's a little bit more minimal compared to this one. So because of the pen that I want to use will work better on this paper, I'm going to use this set of sticky notes instead. I like covering up the places that have the most intense bleed through, but I want to plan it a little bit so that I don't have to overlap too many of my sticky notes together. And over time I feel like it's going to lift. So I do have this thing that's called a dot liner. And basically it has like adhesive strips or like tape. It's like a tape liner basically. So I'm gonna run it actually on the back of my sticky note right here. So this makes it a little bit more of a permanent adhesion to my paper. Just make sure it's nice and smooth. So I might do an extra square somewhere here. So if you really wanted to make everything look a little bit more cohesive, you could add one more sheet, but I don't know. Hi. So kind of now with our sticky notes placed, we can go ahead and choose like an ink or a pencil or whatever you want to use on top and just draw as normal. So I'm gonna go ahead and probably draw Maseki. I'm gonna look up some fall outfits and we can kind of just draw it into here. Okay, so now that I have the sketches done here, we're gonna add ink to them so we can make them pop from the entirety of the page. I really loaded it with sketches, so we'll see how this even looks with these pops of little squares of color here. Hopefully this works out. I love this pen a lot, but if it starts to skip, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So the ink that I'm using, or I guess like the pen that I'm using right now, is the Pentel Energel Klena. Because I think I talked about this before. I used to have like a terrible death grip. And because of that, I would really push into like fine liners, anything that had more like a felt tip, anything like that. I feel like I ruined them. So I opted for like needlepoint pens. So even though I feel like I've become less heavy-handed over the years, I still prefer a needlepoint over any other type of pen, probably. Other than like ballpoint, because it kind of has a different niche. So as I'm inking this, I'm obviously not going to show you guys, or not show you guys, I'm not going to do the method of adding drawings to your sketchbook because I don't have any, actually, Nah, I won't do it. But if you do have like extra drawings on like scrap pieces of paper, that is like the easiest way that you can fill up space in your sketchbook that has bleed through. As long as they fit, obviously, and you don't mind like taping them or adhering them in some sort of way. So we could add hatching to make this stand out even more. Because that's what I liked about the other ones. I think it's also fun doing like the blue kind of ink on top of like the vibrant yellow, which is kind of like, I kind of miss the lighter sticky notes that I used to have. I thought I would like the earth tones more, but I guess not. I keep forgetting to clip down my sketchbook. I never give him this angular of eyes. I feel like this is how I usually draw Kaizen. I know like some people don't care about their aesthetic of their sketchbook, so some of this might not even matter, but if you're the type that it feels a little nicer to keep like a theme or a color scheme or something, then there's like a lot of options you can do. I know some people might not like this method for filling in your sketchbook spread, just because it might look a little bit too messy for some people, but it's like one of the easier ways, just because I think most people have some sort of like scrap paper or sticky notes or some kind of other paper that's not from your sketchbook that you can place into your sketchbook like this and just draw over top. What it looks like. I don't think it looks too bad. I think it looks kind of cute. You could go back and add a little bit of color, technically, if you wanted to. The kind of the sticky note method of covering the majority of like the larger areas that had a lot of bleed through, especially like where the dark brown was, because I feel like some of these areas read actually pretty okay with the ink. I kind of wish I moved this face so that it wasn't being kind of like partially with the bleed through, but overall I think this method works the best for me. Usually it's a little bit less pressure, a little more low-key, but yeah, so that's covering the bleed through for this page. So let's move on to this one. Okay, so now that we have flipped to the next little bleed through, now this was actually suggested by some other people in a very, I think it's like, this is like quite a long time ago, but in a previous video where people said that you could use sticker paper to cover up your bleed through and basically draw on the kind of spread or the thing like again. So what I have here is a sheet of matte sticker paper. Now I just grabbed this from my kind of like sticker paper stash and just grabbed whatever one was matte. I don't know if this one's specifically from onlinelabels.com or if this is like a different brand, because I've bought the Avery brand and another sticker brand that comes with like 10 sheets or whatever, and I remember having some left over. So I don't know if it's this brand or onlinelabels.com. So this might be for inkjet printers. This might be for laserjet printers. Who knows? But the great thing about this is that it is already sticky. because it is label paper, but also it has a matte surface very similar to just like normal sketchbook paper. So we could just do a normal spread. How am I gonna do this? I might see if I can match the papers together, but I did do a test swatch of alcohol markers on label paper just because I wanted to see if the coating on the back that makes it adhesive, as you can see, is bleed proof or not. And so far it looks like it is. So I thought it'd be kind of fun if we could do a kind of like a mini alcohol marker drawing or something on this side as well. Utilize the fact that this kind of has like a bleed proof backing, but as you can see, blending doesn't really work too great. So we're gonna do something a little bit more either like monochromatic or just do cell shading. I don't really have anything too much planned other than having the materials. So let's go ahead and cut this down with my paper trimmer. Maybe we'll use this for swatches or just like for future bleed through that I want to just paste this into. And I can always cut this off or just leave it. So the thing is we could draw directly into here, or we could draw on this and paste it in. So let's go ahead and take our label paper. So you can see it's a little bit of ghosting or like see-throughness, I guess. So it's not the most opaque. I'm pretty sure if you found other ones that have maybe a thicker surface, you can probably find something that's a little bit more opaque. But I think this is good for just general use, because I think it's workable even if there's a little bit of ghosting like this. I know I said I was gonna use these. I don't think I will. I'm so lazy. I hate line art. I want to love my own line art, but I just don't. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. Can I do interesting lighting? Is this too much of a gamble? Might be. I'm not gonna look at the back page. So if this bleeds through, whoops. Okay, so I think, is this enough? Maybe. Because I only chose one color for this and I feel like it might need multiple. Also, it's getting dark in here. Let's do more sketches on this side. We'll do them with the water-based markers too, and then we can just ink both of these spreads together. It might be a little bit easier. I feel like I always draw Kaisen's bangs wrong, so I might have to look up what his bangs look like. Okay, so I think with the sketch done, let's go ahead and do the inking. I'm losing daylight right now. Like I said, it's kind of more dreary today because it's like raining and it's like closer to probably fall, which I'm excited for. But the lighting in here is gonna be getting darker and darker, so apologies about that. I'm gonna quickly do the markers, water-based markers for this. But sometimes when you do like a scribbly motion, it doesn't look too bad. But when you start to like overlap the colors quite a bit, then you start to peel the paper, and then I feel like the streaking becomes more prevalent. My favorite pen is back, so work left to right, and I actually don't know how this pen reacts on this paper, so this could be terrible or pretty okay. Nothing makes me happier than paper cooperating with my pen, because I already detest, not detest, I guess. I don't like my own line art. I like looking at like other people's ink work, both digitally and traditionally. Just couldn't be me. I mean, if I put in the time and practice, then maybe, but I don't like inking. Doesn't really look like him. It looks very out of character. I think sometimes a part of the reason why I don't like doing line art as much, besides the fact that I'm just not confident with my strokes, is maybe my aversion to not using as much texture, like other than hatching. Maybe I should look up how other people do their inking and do some practices. So other than like the... Actually, I don't even know if I will talk about this. There's like a little project that I kind of abandoned that I wanted to do for my OCs. I might come back and do it actually. I think it'd be kind of cute to do like an OC introduction thing. Which is like, a part of me doesn't realize maybe I should have figured out what was like the most comfortable way how I draw him and like commit that to his final design. Because I feel like I always default to the opposite side. This is why if I'm just not lazy, I don't have to do stupid things like this. Make it not make sense. I do like drawing Kaisen. Only if I could draw him more consistently, technically. Because even though I like this pen, it will take me a longer time if I wanted to do like more of a solid black. Because one of my other needlepoint pens, I think it dispenses like a lot more ink. So maybe I should have looked into getting a 0.7 version of this. Because maybe I could fill in black a lot easier. Shade this in. Then for our last session, we'll do something with the acrylic markers, I think. And or gouache. But knowing myself, I think I'm just gonna choose the acrylic markers and do something simple. No bleed through it here, so we're good. The moment of truth. I think he looks good. So you could definitely use like alcohol markers as long as you're not too particular with like blending. Do something more like cell shading or kind of like this monochromatic look where you just do flats. And I think it works out well using the sticker paper, because now with this being in the front and focus, you can't really see the ghosting or like the slate see-throughness of the sticker paper. So if you have matte sticker paper or you're going to like an office supply store or like a craft store, pick some up, because I definitely think this is kind of like the most neat way of like covering up bleed through compared to like plastering sticky notes everywhere, even though I find this the most convenient to carry with you. So let's move on to this bleed through. We'll do acrylic paint markers to cover up the bleed through here, because that's a very fun way to do it, where you can kind of use bold opaque colors to cover up something like the bleed through from alcohol marker. So unfortunately, I was not able to record this with real-time commentary as I filmed this on a different day. So we are going to be using the Arrtx acrylic markers, which I've used in previous videos, and they're kind of like one of my favorite acrylic markers to use just because they're super mess-free and just like really easy to use and just kind of bring on the go. So for this particular kind of like cover up for the bleed through, I kept it super simple. So you saw that on the kind of like right side, I guess like you're currently seeing on the right side, is that the page is kind of filled with like little doodles of Pokemon, just because I was in a very Pokemon mood. I was watching people play Mystery Dungeon again. I was listening to Pokemon music once again, but I wanted to do a little bit of testing, and I still don't feel like the most confident with just like certain painting mediums, especially if they're more opaque, let's say like acrylic or gouache, or like, I guess like in this case, acrylic paint markers. So I kept it super simple by drawing Kaisen and my OC Masaki as well. And I kept them kind of like more unfinished because I didn't want to make these pages super like high pressure, if that makes sense, for the most part. And I'm kind of like happy to say this because I've been having a little bit of trouble, at least like for the past few months, probably starting like April till end of August, with just doing more sketching in my sketchbook, building up that sketchbook habit again. But luckily, I don't know if it's like me being done with like conventions and taking a break, or kind of like switching it up with the sketchbook, that I feel a little bit more rejuvenated in a way, where I feel like I'm sketching a lot more and just fooling around and playing with traditional medium once again. So I'm already a quarter of the way through the sketchbook, which is great. I was counting out the pages again, or not counting the pages, but like marking the pages to find where the halfway point is. And for me, I find it motivating to label where the halfway portion is in your sketchbook, so that once you do reach halfway, it's kind of like an extra push of motivation, hopefully, to finish the sketchbook till the very end. But so the sketchbook actually might fly by super quickly. It does help that the size is very small, and kind of like the orientation just allows me to fill up the pages more quicker. I was gonna say quicklier, but that's not a word. But I want to experiment with more mediums in the sketchbook if I can, just to see how the paper reacts. So right now we're still working with the acrylic markers, but I think this is kind of like one of the most fun ways you can probably cover up bleed through like this. You can kind of see that they pop from the page without needing to cover up every portion of the bleed through. So there's still bleed through kind of like surrounding them, but for the most part, I think it's covered up nicely, and I think they turned out kind of cute. I will definitely play more around with the acrylic markers in the future. But let's look back at our previous little spreads of covering up the bleed through. So this one's done with the sticker paper, like the matte version. And then to the Masaki spread, we have kind of the sticky note method, which is technically my favorite just because of ease of use. And I usually bring sticky notes alongside with me, and you would have saw my plethora of sticky notes anyways. But yeah, that's kind of 3 different methods you can use to cover up bleed through in your sketchbook. Plus, I guess like taping any scrap pieces of anything into your sketchbook would work. So hopefully you guys have some ideas that you can use to cover up some of the bleed through, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!